Hey, how's everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. Here to have a post-election discussion with Yvette Carnell. We had a surprising decision come down yesterday from everything, and it took everybody by storm, including me and Yvette. You know, the posters were wrong. Donald Trump is now the president-elect. Hillary Clinton had to give out a speech, basically handing over the election to Trump. Yvette, you want to say anything to the audience?
No, I just want to thank everybody and thank everybody who tuned in last night to my Facebook Live page and my YouTube page where I had, live discussions and you called in, with people and callers about the election, and we'll be doing that again tonight. So I just want to say thank you.
Okay. What time tonight, though?
We're 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is when we do it, Monday and Wednesday. So check us out.
So Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won. I mean, it's the most they're calling it the most surprising political outcome in possibly American history, definitely in multiple generations, like in modern era politics. Would you agree with that?
I mean, it's the most surprising in my lifetime in terms of what I was told was going to happen, because the day before the press was coronating Hillary. I went on video and said this is a coronation. They were talking about how Trump was bringing in darkness and we're going to usher in light with Hillary. And that's all those headlines I saw. And it turns out everybody was wrong.
And I think one of the things that make it the most obvious is just the fact that Trump didn't even really have a prepared location for the acceptance of the presidency. If you looked where he accepted his presidency, looked like a place where you basically say, I lost, and then you bow to the other person. Whereas when you look at Hillary, I don't know if you saw the location they had. They had a glass that was like a glass ceiling that was like 100 feet, and they were going to break that glass, and it was going to shatter down, and it's still sitting up there now. And so, you had Podesta come out at about 11:30 our time, West Coast, and basically say we're going to give you guys the answer in the morning. And I just think that when you look at it, even Trump's own supporters really didn't think this was going to happen. And for this to happen, you really had the prediction come to pass that there's this silent white majority that wanted their country back, and they came out and voted.
Well, yeah, I think they wanted their country back, and this is what I always say. The problem is that black people voted for the right wing of the Democratic Party. Well, they voted for the establishment. That's what the black vote did, the most part. Now, we voted 8%, I think was the number in terms of black people that turned out for Trump. But we voted for the right wing of the Democratic Party. We voted for the establishment. Republicans didn't come out and vote for the establishment. Republicans came out and they voted for the anti-establishment guy. And they didn't care what you said about him. They didn't care whether you said if he groped women or he didn't do his taxes or he didn't turn over his taxes. They were like, we don't care. We don't care what you say. We don't care what the media says. We want our guy in office, and they got him.
Yeah, I have to agree. When you look at this map, it really came down to Florida, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and he took all of them. And so, when you start to look at it from a more micro level, and you look at the counties, pretty much the goal, like in Pennsylvania, was to get Philadelphia, and then these counties of white people just wouldn't count as much because Philadelphia, of course, is more densely populated. And that math just didn't work because of the amount of white people that just turned out. They said in North Carolina, as an example, comparing this election to the 2008 election, white vote was up 23% in North Carolina, the white vote. And the black vote was down 8% compared to 2008. I mean, when you really grasp, not so much just that black folks turned out less, which is kind of expected, but the amount of white people that are in this country, and for them to come out at these much higher rates, it kind of brought back an ode to Reagan and the Reagan math to presidency that we thought was dead. And so in many ways, everybody's saying he should apologize to people for what he said and that he should do this and that, meaning Trump. But the question is, with this electoral body that elected him, does he have to? Does he have to say anything to blacks and Latinos that they didn't vote for him?
No, you don't have to do anything. Like, that's the thing. And that's the case I always made in terms of Trump. People were like, well, Trump's a racist or whatever. Well, you deal with what you got. And I don't know if he's that much of a racist. I don't know. I don't know the man. So the truth be told, but he's the candidate. So when he said black people are poor, you and I both agreed and we said black people are poor. And what I said was, you know what we need to ask Trump? We need to say, Trump, you're right. Okay, now what are you going to do for black people? Let's talk about a black agenda. But that's not what black people did. We just jumped all over Trump and said, oh, how dare you talk about us like this? You're so awful. You're so this. So now we have a president in the White House who has been nothing but insulted by black people. Now, I don't know what he was going to do or what he was going to do anyway, but that can't position us in a good way for President Trump. And I think the question that we have to ask ourselves, if we want to consider ourselves a serious community, what does it say about us and the black leadership class that we don't have a fallback plan? Like, we had all of our eggs in Hillary's basket. So now Trump is in office, and we just sitting here looking shook. We frazzled as everything. What does that say about who we are as an electorate?
And I come back to a piece, I'm going to pull it up right now, that I wrote on the Griot some months back, essentially after the Democratic National Convention, saying, when you watch the Democratic National Convention, it didn't feel like a Democratic convention. It felt like a Republican convention. It was very aspirational. It was very much, Michelle Obama saying, my kids play on the lawn. You should work hard and your kids can too. It was a lot of Horatio Alger type language. And when you looked at Hillary's campaign, it didn't deal with policy issues that black Americans face. It more so was an ode to identity politics. In this piece, I said that Never Trump shouldn't be enough. And in a lot of ways, Never Trump wasn't enough because it didn't excite the base of African Americans, Latinos. It didn't excite the base of even women in the way that Trump's message about immigration, about jobs, about Obamacare excited the base of white America.
No, it didn't. Like, she thought, like you rightly pointed out in the article, she thought that saying, not Trump, I'm not Trump, was enough. Well, that's not an agenda. That's not an agenda for anybody, especially not an agenda for black people who are on the bottom economically. But that's not an agenda for anybody just to say, I'm not Trump. So that wasn't enough. So you can't blame you can't blame us. You can't blame black people for not coming out. Hillary Clinton didn't give us a reason to come out in the same kind of numbers that we came out for Obama. You didn't give us any kind of agenda. Now, I'm not saying Obama had a great agenda, but he was just black, and we would vote for the black guy because he wasn't McCain.
And let's go back to 2008 for a second. Now that you brought his name up, like it's so telling that when if you as a person are honest with yourself about how you felt when this man came out in 2008 with his family, when they announced the first family, and it was done like a concert for a hip hop artist or a R&B artist, and he walks out and he gives this lofty speech.
For the Democratic candidate, the states of California, 55 electoral votes. Washington, 11 electoral votes. Oregon, 7 electoral votes. And Hawaii, 4 electoral votes. Listen to the crowd at Grant Park in Chicago.
And you think about like how ordinary like Trump came out, and you start to wonder, why did they do that? What were they trying to accomplish as far as making me feel a certain way versus delivering the things that I need to be able to help and assist my family? Because now you look back 8 years later and you just have a bunch of pictures, as Byron Allen said so eloquently in my video with him. You just have pictures of the Obamas, and it's such a ironic tale that the very thing in many ways that got Trump elected is the very thing that got Obama elected. Obama was more qualified than Trump by far to me. Trump is going to have to learn a lot on the fly. But at the same time, he was just a junior senator, 2-year senator. and Trump on the other hand is and they both kind of benefited from an era of reality politics where personality mattered more than substance, and that's how they both beat kind of Hillary the same way under the same mat, being larger than life.
I agree. That's kind of like that kind of projecting authenticity. Where I think with Trump is real, whether you like him or not. I think he's authentic. Whereas with Obama, I don't think it was real. I think it was fake. But when you go to the naivete, whether it's naivete that Obama came in and he wasn't ready, or whether it was a case that he just wasn't, doing the right thing, what we're looking at is a black president who didn't really do anything for black people. And that's part of the reason black people didn't turn out. There's no doubt in my mind that if Obama had done some real stuff for black people and put in place some stuff to really help black people would have came out in droves, and black people would have come out at the same levels that they came out with Obama. But that didn't happen because he didn't do anything for black people. So I was kind of happy to see Obama out there talking about, well, we gotta turn it over, and be and have a nice handover like Bush did to me, because that's what you deserve. You don't deserve to be able to pass anything on. People keep talking about Obamacare. Obamacare helped everybody but black people. So what are you talking about as a legacy for Obama?
And what do you mean by that?
Well, there's an article in Bloomberg, and maybe we should pull that up. But there's an article in Bloomberg which shows that like the people who benefit, there was only I think it was a 1 percentage point change in the percentage of black people who had health care after Obamacare. That's not something that we should be hugely proud of. And part of it has to do with the fact that we usually can't afford the premiums. Like, we're the poorest people. So we have the least amount of money to spend on health care.
Yeah, and coming back to Obama and using that as the framework for Hillary, I think by Obama not having an agenda, Hillary in many ways didn't feel she had to really have one focused on blacks either. And we have very succinct and unique problems that are aside from just being poor, but also coming from slavery and the history of slavery in this country, and also the realities of what Jim Crow left as pivot points throughout our families. So, here we have Hillary running around meeting the Breakfast Club with canned answers to questions that she already knows they're gonna ask, rather than sitting down with like true black intelligentsia with questions about what is what is going to be her policy for African Americans to actually begin to try to take part in the American dream. The hot sauce in my bag and the pandering, and I'll pull that up right now so you guys can see that. And for her to then say in so many words that is it working? For her to bring out Jay-Z and Beyonce a couple of days before, as if these two people are gonna light black people on fire with no kind of commitment of policy. It's just I think it was disrespectful to the black electorate, and she got taught a lesson that cost us all.
Oh, I think she did I think all Democrats got taught a lesson. That's why I'm not as dismal or depressed as so many black people. Listen, I've heard people say to me today, Trump is going to enter the White House with a Republican Congress, and we should be afraid. Well, the question you should ask yourself is, Bill Clinton entered the White House with a Democratic Congress. President Obama entered the White House with a Democratic Congress. Republicans were not afraid. Why not? Until you can give me a Democratic Party that makes Republicans afraid as black people are right now about having a Republican president, a Republican Congress, I don't want to hear anything. That's the Democratic Party we need. We need a Democratic Party that's further to the left, that actually fights for working people. Until we have that, then we're going to lose. And Democrats deserve to lose until they give us the party we deserve.
Well, I think that the big sad takeaway from Hillary is they considered her far left as she adopted parts of Bernie's platform. And in many ways now people are blaming that for the loss rather than her as an individual. And so I think that the ultimate conclusion is nobody will want to touch that far left stuff again. But it wasn't the far left stuff as much as it is the history of the Clintons that led to this loss. And so we come to a position where when we look at Hillary Clinton, we have to be honest that while Donald Trump went through 17 candidates, including the Bushes, 17 solid Republican candidates, Hillary basically had to face Bernie while Bernie had his arms tied behind his back, while Donna Brazile gave her the questions to primary answers. and also has super delegates, which gave her a lead. So she really didn't even face Bernie. She kind of just jumped right to the presidential like campaign. And the sad part about that is that she, in many ways, is as responsible for Donald Trump as anyone, because she was a flawed candidate, as is the Democratic Party, because a flawed candidate gets vetted out when you have a good primary system, and here that didn't happen, and as a result, we had a choice between Trump and Hillary as black people, and a lot of black people felt that was no choice at all, given the history of the Clintons with black people, from mass incarceration to the Telecom Act to some welfare reform. It just isn't a good history. So then you left black people with no one to vote for in so many ways.
Yeah, and let me just touch on one of the things you said first. It's absolutely insane for anyone to say that Hillary failed because she was too far left. Listen, Bernie Sanders brought out crowds that we haven't, with numbers that we have not seen. He brought out crowds that even dwarfed a lot of Trump's crowds during the primaries. Those are the kind of crowds Bernie Sanders drew with the leftist stuff that he was talking about. That's what people want to hear. And it didn't sound genuine coming out of Hillary Clinton's mouth, because we knew she didn't mean it. We knew Hillary Clinton didn't mean what she was talking about. But that kind of stuff is where America is. Like, in order for the Democrats to win from now on, they're going to have to employ the Trump method, which is to have a populist candidate who has
that's what Cornel West said. That's why Cornel West said Bernie Sanders was the perfect answer to Trump in so many ways. And it's funny because many people feel that base of Bernie supporters is kind of what put Trump over the top, the change voters in Michigan and Wisconsin. Coming back to the black vote on a national level, what we see is this interesting dynamic when we compare this election to 12, where Obama took about 93% of the black vote, and Romney had about 7% of the black vote. Whereas to this year, 16, Clinton had about 88% of the black vote, and Trump had about 8% of the black vote. Do you think that the green vote, the libertarian vote, split black people in a way that affected Hillary detrimentally?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you may ask if people stayed home in a way that hurt her detrimentally. I do believe that she was probably hurt, but she was an awful candidate. And what we saw with WikiLeaks is that so much of this was rigged against Bernie. Like, the DNC was supposed to be unbiased. So what we saw is that they wasn't unbiased. They weren't unbiased. And if they had been unbiased, we don't know whether or not we would have had Bernie as a candidate. So, I don't think Jill Stein, I don't think the libertarian, Gary Johnson, I don't think anybody got in the way of Hillary. I think Hillary got in the way of Hillary. Nobody wants Hillary Clinton as a candidate. I think as a system, we're done with plastic candidates. Nobody wants Hillary Clinton. Nobody wants Mitt Romney. Nobody wants these plastic androids. They want real people.
And so, is this the end of neoliberalism, or will it just reform itself? Is this the end of people who really can't take a position on anything? Is this the end of open borders? I mean, I know this is a global world, but in so many ways, this was a referendum as much, if not more, on the idea that America is this world engine, and everybody else should be allowed to take part in that world engine. Trump's major calling cards is about immigration. It's about the issues with ISIS. It's about building a wall. It's about jobs. I'm not hearing too much that's about black people. I know he's talked about law and order, but as far as specifics that perk black people's ears up, I mean, he did say the things about the ghetto and about black people, but the numbers actually support much of what he said as far as black people's economic state today. The middle black family, for those that haven't watched our prior videos, you can go to inequality.org. I write at an economic think tank there at inequality.org. Institute for Policy Studies, and I've done extensive numbers on this. The middle black family is worth $1,700 in this country. The middle white family is worth about $110,000. That's just the numbers. That's not me making them up. That came from heavy research that people have done. And so, I come back to this place where we have a problem with him saying that versus having a problem with why that exists. And so I ask you today, whether Trump or Clinton was the better candidate for black people.
Well, I think here's what we have. They both have a track record, right? But Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, because they've worked together as a team all of their life, they have a track record. And if anybody wants to know, I did an interview with Nathan Robinson on Sunday, and it's posted on Your Black World and Breaking Brown's YouTube. And he wrote a book about Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton's abuse of black America. And it's a very detailed book of everything Bill Clinton did, from mass incarceration to welfare to parole to prisoners not being able to sue to Ricky Rector. It's a detailed account of Bill Clinton's treatment of the black community. All right? So if you want to know that, go and look at that interview. It's up on this page. Now, what I would say to that is this. That is a history of deeds. That is a history of things that Bill Clinton has done. It's a history of Hillary Clinton saying super predator. It's a history of Hillary Clinton saying that the TPP is the gold standard and that she agreed with NAFTA, which gutted, working class jobs. You compare that to what Donald Trump has said some things, right? And he said some things that I find problematic as well. But the truth of the matter is what we're weighing is Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's deeds to Donald Trump's words. And I think when you weigh that, I think black people were just like, I don't see that I have a candidate. This candidate kind of troubles me in some ways. And this candidate has a history where I think if she gets back in the White House with Bill Clinton, they're going to use me as a scapegoat again. So I think black people may have been kind of apathetic in terms of how we react to this election.
Yeah, and it's a trip because I think, Hillary tried to run the campaign that Obama ran. And the difference is that Obama was able to kind of like skate through on looking black. He was able. A lot of people saw Obama as the completion of Dr. King, as if he had a whole lifetime of civil rights work like Dr. King, and then he's the guy that's running for us after that full lifetime of working on the Civil Rights Act and all kind of things. But that's not who he was individually. Yeah. And so, like, what you saw is he was able to bring Jay-Z out, and he was able to have rappers rap about songs, and that was just enough. And 8 years later, as I said in 2008, I told people when he was elected, I was at people's house, they was crying. I was saying then, don't expect much, because at the end of the day, he hasn't committed to anything. And that's what you have to go by in politics. What did they say during the campaign that they have to deliver on? And so I come back to it, and with Hillary, I felt personally disrespected that she went and met with the Breakfast Club and the hot sauce on my bag and the death row comments and I'm pandering to black people. And I also felt personally disrespected that nobody dealt with the fact that we don't speak through Jay-Z and Beyonce. We as a group are way too educated to speak through these two artists, musicians. If you want our vote, come down here and tell us why you put so many of us in prison and when are the dates you're going to let us out. If you want our vote, tell us how you're going to deliver jobs to so many of our young people. If you want our vote, tell us how you're going to deal with the reality that so many of us have student loans because our families were not able to amass wealth during the big booms of this country's New Deal and Industrial Revolution eras. If you can't do that, then this is what you get. You get apathy. You get a voting population that really isn't interested in nothing that you have to say at a concert. I'm with her. Why am I with her is the question. Well,
yeah, and I think we're kind of done. See, this is why I'm kind of excited and optimistic. I'm not upset. Like, I didn't wake up upset this morning that Trump won at all. And it's not because, Yvette, you're a Trump supporter. No, it's not. It's not about anything like that. It has to do with the fact that I'm happy that this didn't work. This is what they do all the time. They come out, they use these black surrogates, these black elected officials, these black Negro whisperers like Bakari Sellers and Joy Reid and all these people to scare black people into going out and voting for people who really don't have their best interests at heart. And so what I'm excited about, and they use these black artists, like Jay-Z we just mentioned. Why do I care what Jay-Z thinks about politics? I don't even have any evidence he knows anything about politics, has any kind of political knowledge. So I don't care what he thinks. But this is how they normally use us. Every election they use us this way, and it normally works. I'm excited that it didn't work. Like, we talk about the Republicans actually electing, Donald Trump. But the truth of the matter is, in a certain way, whether you stayed home or didn't come out in the level that you came out for Obama. It was also, Democrats rejecting Hillary Clinton and rejecting this idea that, just saying you're not Trump, black people just saying that, oh, I should be so afraid of Trump, and just because you're Trump, I'm going, whatever. It didn't work. So the thing is, this has to be a new day for Democrats. In order for Democrats to win going forward, they have to do it from a populist standpoint. The old model just didn't work. It fell apart.
Yeah, and I come back to ask you, now looking back after she's lost, what do you feel about Donna Brazile and Roland Martin?
Oh, I feel like they should basically be rejected. I think they should be excommunicated from the black community and the black intelligentsia. Here, and this is something that I said yesterday, and I'm going to say this again. Black people don't really get a chance to speak to power. Hillary Clinton was the Democratic nominee at the time of those debates. We talked about the Flint question, the death penalty question. Roland Martin, from what CNN tells us, Roland Martin gave Donna Brazile those questions so that she could sneak them to Hillary Clinton, so Hillary Clinton could cheat during a debate. Now, mind you, nobody snuck questions on white questions or questions on the LGBT community or anything else. The only questions that were snuck to Hillary so she would have an advance, as far as I know, as far as WikiLeaks has revealed, were questions that pertain to income inequality, questions that pertain to the death penalty, Flint, all of those sorts of things, which do kind of go to black people. These are kind of go to the
it's not even kind of. When you use the death penalty question, you can't help but experience it. And I'm going to pull that question up for a second. Let me let you guys watch him ask.
I came perilously close to my own execution. And in light of that, what I've just shared with you, and in light of the fact that there are documented cases of innocent people who have been executed in our country, I would like to know, how can you still take your stance on the death penalty in light of what you know right now?
This is such a profoundly difficult question, and what I have said and what I continue to believe is that the states have proven themselves incapable of carrying out fair trials that give any defendant all the rights that defendants should have, all the support that the defendant's lawyer should have.
So now that you guys got a chance to watch it, you can't help but experience it through, here's a guy who might have been sitting on death row for 10 to 20 years. And this is his moment. This African-American man, after all that time of being falsely accused, to bring a question to power's door. And it was kind of like taken away from him by Donna Brazile and her need to actually use that as leverage for personal gain. And the thing is, people might say, how do you know that it's not for personal gain? Because there was no demand for the race as a whole. And the demand was in the question. We needed to see what Hillary would say on a candid answer, not on a canned answer prepared. And that's what I'm saying about the Breakfast Club and everything else. What you guys might not be seeing is that these are prepared questions. She was the lady who had closed herself off, meaning Hillary Clinton, from the press. Then she decides to open her doors to speak to black press through the Breakfast Club, which is part of the whole, as I understand it, Clear Channel umbrella. And then if you don't think that those questions were not prepared before, and she had her answers, then you just don't understand what you were watching. What you were watching was basically air. When I say air, it was nothing. Because she already had the answers to the questions, and it was just to make you feel she gave you a chance, when she gave you no chance at all to say anything directly to her. You saw her chance. I interviewed the young lady that confronted Hillary Clinton, and I'll pull up the picture right now. You can go to my page and check out the interview. I interviewed her, that confronted her on mass incarceration, and you saw her candid response, meaning Hillary's, when this issue was brought to her. Move her out of here. Let me finish talking to this white group of people, and I'll pull up the reverse shot so you can see that as well, and continue with what I'm actually planning on doing. And until black people understand that a choice between somebody pandering and somebody being honest about being racist is, not really a choice at all, which seems to be the case today, then, we can't move forward.
No, I agree with you. I agree in terms of, this was our one shot. Like, this was our chance to talk to the Democratic nominee and get an authentic reaction from her in terms of how she felt. And it's funny because after that town hall, somebody said to me, Hillary looked way too polished. And, I wonder how many other questions she got. But you have these two people who, in terms of Roland Martin and Donna Brazile, who seem so concerned for themselves in terms of, ingratiating themselves to the Democratic Party, that they threw us, the black community, under the bus. That's what they did. And you see, I saw Roland Martin. Somebody put up a video on my Facebook page of Roland Martin, and he looks devastated. People don't understand how much the Black Men's Leadership class and the Negro Whisperers had invested, or now I should probably, a friend of mine call them the Negro Whiners, how much they had invested in Hillary Clinton.
Well, I would go a step further, Yvette. I mean, when you look at this thing, between media, I'm talking about all media, between media, the Democratic Party, liberal capital, so many people have so much invested in Hillary. And I think people are missing, like, that reality that this, if you just look back to the primaries, I did a piece on this at the beginning of the primaries, or towards the beginning, about how skewed and how unfair superdelegates made the whole process. Bernie was supposed to be ahead, but the superdelegates basically would never let him get ahead and was slanted, so it looked like he wasn't ahead. Knowing that going in, I believe, to South Carolina, if it looks like he's ahead, most people go with a winner. And so, like, they wouldn't let him look like he was ahead. And the trippy part about all of that is, okay, the super delegates slanted it. Then we find out what we didn't know at the time, and as a result, couldn't vote on. See, because the other thing about these questions is, by giving her these questions, you affected votes. So she already had the super delegates, but then on top of it, by giving her the questions, she looked polished, so she looked better than Bernie. So then you affected the whole process. And there was only two candidates, and Bernie kind of looks like a professor, a school professor. So you already gave us the guy that don't look all that presidential. You gave her the questions, and also you got super delegates already voting for her. So she kind of slid through that. Then she gets to the presidency, and media in the large part basically admitted through these WikiLeaks that we saw, and we'll talk about that in a second, that they were slanting it towards her. They were asking, how can I help? How can I, what kind of piece can I write? So now you come to a point where, what did it take for you to lose? What did you have to do to lose? How many flaws did you have to have individually to lose when all this is slanted in your favor?
No, you're right. They set it up to where they set her up. Like, the DNC set her up. The DNC, Roland Martin, Donna Brazile, all of these people set her up. She should have never been the candidate, and they set her up. So what happened though when she went against Trump and she failed? And everybody knows that Hillary Clinton's not a good candidate. Hillary Clinton has admitted herself, I'm not a good candidate. And then with all the baggage of the Clintons, like, she never should have even been in the running, much less what happened. But they not only put her in the running, they gave her an advantage. Do stuff at Bernie, whatever, all of that stuff. And now she gets here and she fails. And then you want to blame us. You want to blame black people. You want to blame, other people. You want to blame Hispanics. No, it's your fault. Hillary, is your fault. Democrats, all these Democrats who like, we're for Hillary. And you know what? Remember what they kept saying? Hillary's the only one that can beat Trump. She got whipped last night. And these people were telling us she's the only one that could beat Trump. She got beat.
And it's really a trip, because here you have a guy that's not a politician that went through the Bushes, the dynasty of the Bushes through Jeb Bush, and also the dynasty of the Clintons through Hillary. The power of brand names and political names has kind of like been pushed to the side, and the people have spoken. And like, I don't necessarily say that that's the right choice, like voting for like Donald Trump, but I definitely can say that the people spoke. And it's really, as we walked into the night and the pollsters, because this is a referendum on the whole process. So that's what people might not be getting today, is they pay people to go out and poll. And those polls are supposed to deliver certain amounts of information so the candidates then can make decisions of where to go. Like what state should I hit next? She didn't go to Wisconsin thinking she had it in the bag. She didn't go to North Carolina and so like a whole lot of people are crying not for the reason that you think, which is because we have Trump, but because their whole way of life, the things that they've been living on, have been just disproven. Everything that they based their, there was this whole idea after Obama that you could not so much buy a presidency, but like you had a whole model on how to win, and you put people on the ground, and you pay them this much money, and you get all this data. Trump didn't have none of that. All he got out was white folks, and them white folks came out in groves and voted for him, and didn't tell nobody they was voting for him. That's the craziest part.
No.
They did it
and
in the poll.
Some of them might have lied and said, "No, I'm not voting for Trump." But when that voter booth, they did.
Yeah, and so I guess for me, for Black America, I just hope that we step back, take in the moment in its full, like, grand picture, and understand. I'm not saying that Trump is a better candidate or Hillary's a better candidate, but I am saying that neither of them had committed much policy to us. And if you feel like there's certain things that she was going to do that were going to affect you, I just say go back and look at the tapes of the WikiLeaks and say, what was she going to do? Because we're not sure. Because there has to be a personal responsibility given to Hillary about having a server in your house, about picking Podesta. Podesta was incompetent. And everybody's not calling it what it is. For your main man who got all your emails to press a link that allows somebody to phish him, that leads to almost a month of releases of emails that are confidential. Podesta is probably just as responsible for this loss as anyone. And then Abedin.
And he didn't even, the only way he knew about it, somebody sent him an email and said, somebody's stolen your password, change your password. So, he didn't even know.
And I'm not, this isn't to be disrespectful, but it's to say we got to judge everybody. Everybody gets judged. And Abedin is another one. She married a pedophile and then had emails on the computer, which led to an investigation a week before or a few days before the election. Like, come on, dude. Come on, Abedin. I come back to everybody looking at Comey and not understanding that Comey was put in between a rock and a hard place by the Clintons. And that rock and that hard place started when Bill Clinton decided to meet Loretta Lynch in the back of a plane. If Bill Clinton doesn't meet Loretta Lynch in the back of the plane, it makes Comey's job a lot easier when he decides not to bring charges and he ain't got to give a long statement. But when Bill Clinton meets Loretta Lynch in the back of the plane for 35 minutes, supposedly to talk about golf and the kids, what ends up happening, now Comey got to explain himself. And now when he explains himself, it just opens a whole can of worms. So people were all around Clinton. Clinton herself made a lot of missteps. But then people around the Clintons also were not all that competent. But then you got to wonder, when you look at these missteps very closely, the Clinton Initiative, Bill Clinton Inc., you look at the supposed Chelsea Clinton in the wedding. You just look at all these different things and you start to wonder, was there missteps or was this just how they run their operation?
I think this is just how they run their operation. Like, they run stuff and they don't care what you think about it. And this is how they live their life. And I think Bill Clinton wanted to get a message to Loretta Lynch. Hey, you make sure this goes away. Are we clear? And I think this is how he runs stuff, and he don't care what you think about it. He didn't anticipate nobody knowing anything about it. It was only like a local reporter that caught it. He didn't anticipate nobody knowing about it. He was just going to do that, and Loretta Lynch was just going to do that. And this shows how ridiculous she is. Like, she couldn't even control. Like, even when Comey was going to made the statement, Loretta Lynch supposedly, asked him, cautioned him against it, and he didn't care because he's Comey. He's a white man with connection. He's there. He has an infrastructure. He's tapped in. Loretta Lynch isn't that. Loretta Lynch is just a black woman passing through. You ain't got no power. You don't have no connections in D.C. like that. What you talking about?
What you mean by that? Explain that out for people a little bit.
Well, you can't. Loretta Lynch isn't like, Comey has a history in Washington, D.C. in terms of when you see people in the Pentagon, they're all Pentagon. They got back in the Pentagon. They got connected. They had all kinds of jobs there. You look at even when you look at the Justice Department, there are people who've been there, FBI, lifelong FBI, whatever, and they have all kind of connections. They're part of that structure. Loretta Lynch just got there. She's not a part of that mostly white structure. She doesn't have a history there. She's there because Obama's there, and when Obama's gone, she's gonna be gone too. She's not gonna stick around.
And what's a trip is like most people, they would do themselves a great justice to look at Obama through that very same lens. He's just a black guy that passed through. He used the Clinton administration. He had Rahm Emanuel plot out his first 100 days. This isn't conspiracy or anything. This is what happened. Rahm Emanuel was a Clinton guy. And that's the mayor of Chicago now. But he basically came on to Obama's administration. And he was the guy that planned out the first 100 days. He had done great work for the Clintons on certain policies that didn't help black people either. And those 100 days were supposed to be as non-confrontational or raise as little red flags as possible. Well, everything black people need raises red flags. So basically, Obama's first 100 days before he even hit the office weren't supposed to be about black people. And they weren't.
Yeah.
And so, like, then you also add in the fact that Citibank, as it came out in the WikiLeaks, had planned Obama's administration back in October of 2007. They actually let me say it more clearly. They provided a list of who they think should be in different positions in the cabinet, and that list ended up being exactly almost who ended up in positions in the cabinet. And so, like, when we look at Obama as we kind of start moving towards the end of the conversation, as a precursor to Clinton, here you have a president who ran around and said and basically don't boo, vote, all kind of statements to black people. He didn't sound like the same guy in 2008 as he was in 2008. He sounded very, very, I call it old. He's older, but he sounded old compared to just sounding young in 2008. And so, like, his approval rating was 54%. What that traditionally means is that your voice carries weight. People like you. But he had created such a history that people liked him for every reason that you like a celebrity. Not for the reason that you like a politician. Particularly black people. I like how you look. I don't like what you did for me. And so, like, it's quite ironic that now he has to sit and deal with the fact that his major 3 accomplishments will likely be dismantled. That being or they will lead to very much like negative consequences for America as a whole, which is the stimulus package, Obamacare, and the Iran deal. If you notice, all 3 of those don't have anything to do with black people, and we'll talk about Obamacare again in a second. But, like, when you look at those 3 things, they won't have good history, and one of them, Obamacare, will probably be dismantled very quickly, and the Iran deal likely will be taken apart as well. And, when you come in and you do the Essence magazines with your wife and the glamorous outfits, and you do the pictures, this is kind of like I think they like you for that. The next thing they want you to do, like Byron Allen said, is just sing some Al Green. And so, like, I think this is such a statement that he has to deal with that consequence,
I mean, and let's be honest about Obamacare. It was failing before. It was coming undone and coming unraveled before Trump got in there. I saw there's a very good article that shows, like, there are some states that were only going to have 1 to 2 Obamacare providers coming next year, and Obama himself said Obamacare has problems that Congress refuses to fix. And that's what happens when you take single payer off the table. When you're trying to do health care and you allow Rahm Emanuel, your chief of staff, to say we're not going to even talk about single payer, that's not going to be an issue. This is what happens. So, I don't feel sorry for Obama, because you were a neoliberal hack. That's what you were. And so that's not anything that makes people want to come out and vote for you. I heard Obama say, I would consider it a personal insult if black people don't come out for me the same way they came out for Hillary. Who cares? Who cares what you think? And why should we come out for Hillary when we came out for you? If you had a 3rd term, why should we come out for you? You haven't done anything for us.
Yeah, and I think that the twist of that is to say, you are that person, and you ran with Stevie Wonder and the moral arc of Dr. King and all of these statements of civil rights revolution that played on the heartstrings of black America. And you didn't tell them that I don't plan on doing none of that stuff. I'm going to be center-based. And the funny thing is, that's kind of what Hillary said. Hillary was the candidate that Obama was, except she didn't play all the Stevie Wonder, and she didn't do all the Martin Luther King odes. She thought the woman ticket was going to be the way. The only thing is you can't play women the same way because of their history doesn't involve slavery and Jim Crow and being subjugated in the same way, in the same kind of heavy levels of oppression. So like you said before, black people just want to be next to a winner. And Obama was a winner. But in the end, it's nice to be next to a winner, but when you need to eat, when you need housing, forget that. When you need to get out of jail, you want the winner to actually deliver those things. So Obama released these, every time he released 15 people, we got to get an article. No, we talking about 800,000 black men in prison. This man's releasing 15 people, and we get an article about how he released 15 people. I'm not even saying don't release them. I'm saying it don't deserve an article. We talking about a country of 300 million people and 800,000 black men are in prison. Putting that in context, you got 9 countries representing 2 billion people, including India, and they have 2 million prisoners. We got half the number of black men, just black men, in prison compared to 9 countries representing 2 billion people. There's like 30 million black men. And to say this, but what does electing Trump mean about Obama's presidency?
It means he failed. I mean, this Trump winning is a condemnation of Obama. That's what it is. Because if Hillary Clinton really tried to use Obama and to get black people out by saying that I'm going to continue what Obama started, the only problem for black people is that Obama didn't start anything. If Obama had started things, if Obama had started some investments and we were breaking ground on projects in black communities, if he had said, if he had even said something small like, we have 5 black communities that have high levels of lead, and I've started projects, billion-dollar projects in all of these communities to revamp their structure. And we could have at least said then, hey, I don't want Donald Trump to get in there, because then those black people might keep having to drink dirty water. Like, let's let this project go on through. He didn't even even something small. That's not even a big policy initiative thing. He didn't even give us that.
And for my brother's keeper as an example, for those people that think about that, well, he had this you need to do your research. Don't let anybody, don't let Yvette, don't let Antonio, don't let Barack Obama pull the sheet over your head. You can go on the internet and check for yourself. My brother's keeper was unfunded. It had no governmental funding. This is the president of the United States. This isn't an alderman or something like that. He don't need congressional help to get that funded. If you don't understand that, you really need to look into this. And it was really funded with piecemeal money from corporations, and it just wasn't the program that they kind of like paraded it around as, in terms of dealing with the kind of like issue that black men are facing, particularly, but black communities and black families, as a result of Jim Crow, as a result of mass incarceration and the legacy of slavery. The very interesting dynamic with President Obama and the 54% approval rating is, I think so much of Hillary Clinton's campaign also hinged on that. She decided to lean on him because his ratings were high, and thinking that he would have support. And what I almost walk away with, with so many people having voted for Trump but not showing up in the polls, like in the early polls as being Trump supporters, how many of those people also said they supported Obama and just didn't? So was his approval rating really 54% from the get-go? And like, you start to look back and you start to wonder, how much of this do we put on Hillary Clinton? How much of this do we put on the DNC? How much of this do we put on Barack Obama? How much of this do we put on ourselves? And those are the questions we're all going to have to ask as we move forward with a Donald Trump presidency. But we also going to have to ask, what can we do given that this is the new reality? So I'm going to ask you the question, what should Black America do given that this is the new reality? Donald Trump is the president of America, starting once he's inaugurated at the top of 2017. What should Black America do, request, demand, in your mind?
I think the first thing black people need to do is calm down. Like, I don't think this is the end of the world for black people. I think that it could actually be some benefit to us. I think insofar as Donald Trump and the Republican Congress propose legislation that is in opposition to our interests, we have to organize in a way that we can, in a way that we haven't done in the past. We've kind of become used to being kind of lazy and kind of working through the Congressional Black Caucus and saying, well, why aren't our people talking? And I think we have to hold them accountable too. But I think we have to organize ourselves. I think we have to go back to the mode of being organized and community relations, things like that. But I will also say that, I don't know if this is going to be all bad for African Americans. I think some of this is kind of hyperbolic and premature. And I think it's also time for us as Black people, as African Americans in this country, to kind of take a step back and kind of batten down the hatches and just kind of stay out the way. Like, regardless of how you feel about immigration, it may be time to let other people lead that fight. And I'm not saying that we can't be allies at some point, but it may be time to let other people. We've led a lot of fights in this country. We've led a lot of fights, from civil rights that benefited white women and affirmative action and all sorts of stuff. It may be time for us to just kind of take a step back, because I'm going to tell you something. The white people who voted Trump in, they're not doing these Black Lives Matter protests anymore. We're going to have to find a different way to organize. They're sick of this. They're tired of this. And I think that's just going to create a level of animosity that I'm not sure we want to see in an electorate that just came out. You see all these big numbers of white people that just came out to vote for Trump. I'm talking about organizing in a different kind of way that's less about a spectacle and more about just going about diligently doing the work.
I agree. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Definitely subscribe to the wonderful channel she has, Breaking Brown. Definitely try to go out and support her live show. That is Mondays and Wednesdays at 6, correct? 6 o'clock Pacific.
6 p.m. your time, but 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah,
and definitely can subscribe to Tone Talks. Donations are accepted. We want to keep this show going. And please stay informed. Thank you again.